Hey everybody, Opinionated Shapescade here. We're going to do a little bit of a combo review here. We're going to talk about two products from Vargo, both of which I like individually, but which I wanted to test out and see whether they worked well together. And one of them is this Vargo Decagon. This is a nice little alcohol stove. The way it works is it's made entirely out of one piece of titanium, so it weighs almost nothing. It's about, I believe, 1.5 ounces, 1.2 ounces, something like that. And because it's made entirely out of titanium, even though it weighs nothing, it's just really tough, really tough. It's not gonna, I mean, yeah, I couldn't drive over this with my car or something, but sort of anything short of that, yeah, this thing is gonna survive anything you're gonna throw at it in the wilderness. And so I really like the combination of lightweight and toughness that this sort of brings to the table. Vargo also makes this other product, which is called the Hexagon Woodstove. It folds apart down to a little flat thing and stores in this little flat bag. This is what it looks like when it's assembled. The idea here with this is it's kind of a little, almost a little miniature chimney. You build a little fire of sticks and twigs here on the bottom, and because there's a grate here, air is supposed to shoot in underneath of this, go through the grate and through the burning fire to stimulate it, and then heat shoots out the top. And so because it's got that sort of chimney effect, it kind of supercharges the little wood fire and allows you to boil water, building only a really quite small fire, a fire that really wouldn't boil water if it were just, you know, around some stones or anything. So it's a clever little thing, and again, because it's made entirely out of titanium, very lightweight. But a lot of people have figured out that, hey, given this sort of clever design for burning wood, you could also adapt this and use it as a alcohol burner. And a number of people have done a number of tests on this. There's one guy who I will give a shout out to. I don't know the guy, but he seems like a good guy. His name is Hiram Cook, and he has this YouTube channel where he has one of these Vargo titanium wood stoves as well. And he's tried a number of different alcohol stoves in this with varying degrees of success. Some worked well, some not so much. But one he hasn't tried is the one that I like the most, which is this Vargo Decagon. And so I'm going to sort of, you know, fill in that gap in sort of our collective knowledge by showing how well this boils water. I certainly don't know as much about alcohol stoves as Hiram Cook does, and if you're very interested in that stuff, I'll put a link to his channel below. He clearly has forgotten more about alcohol stoves than I will ever know, but this one combination of alcohol stove with this he didn't test. So all right, and perhaps one of the reasons why he didn't test this is the following. When you put the stove in here, you have to open it up to get it in there, but because they're both made by the same company, it does fit. All right, now I'm no alcohol stove expert, but there's some pretty obvious grounds for concern when you look at this. The first one is, here's where the holes are for the jets. So once the stove blooms, these is where the flames are going to come out, right here. If you're going to use this as a windscreen, the pot has to sit way up here. The gap between here and here, that's the better part of 2 inches. So that's a long way for the heat to travel. Probably going to be inefficient, right? So that's a potential problem. Also, as I said before, the design of the Hexagon with this narrow thing, it's all about creating a little chimney effect. But in order for that to work, air has to be able to shoot in underneath and through these little holes in the bottom. But the wide flat base of the Decagon stove covers up most of the holes. And so I'll hold this up to the camera, but you're probably not going to be able to see very well. But even if you sort of wiggle this to try to get as much air evenly coming through as you can, most of the holes are covered up. So it looks like it's not going to get very good air circulation. Looks like the flame is really far from the pot. Maybe this is going to work, maybe it's not. So I decided I would do the most generous test that I could devise for this to see whether it would work. Before I took it out in the field, I was frankly quite skeptical of whether it was going to work or not. And so I did a boil test on this in my house on my kitchen range. I filled up the alcohol stove, lit it, got it to bloom, and then I put 2 cups of tap water into this, which is this GSI tea kettle, and it's a halulite. It's a very lightweight aluminum, very thin aluminum. It's not quite as light, obviously, as a titanium kettle would be, but it's pretty close. And I really like this kettle because aluminum is a great conductor of heat. This thing boils water with pretty much every stove that I use it with faster than anything else. And for two reasons. One, because of the aluminum, and also because excuse me, this is a very broad base, and so you don't have that problem with a narrow pot where you stick it on and then the flames shoot out the side and the heat's being wasted because it's not touching the bottom of the pot. The wide base of this combined with the very thin aluminum means that this boils water really, really fast. And so I put 2 cups of tap water in the fastest boiler I own, lit this off, put it on there, and then timed it to see how quickly it would get me to a boil. And I'm going to throw a video up here in the corner, and I'm just going to use it in the corner because it's sort of some crummy cell phone video. It's a little bit jiggly. I don't want to give you all nausea, so we'll just keep it over in the corner. You'll be able to get the point from that without getting sick. What I found was after the stove bloomed, and it took about a minute or so to bloom, pretty quickly thereafter, after I put the pot on, this thing was really just going great gangbusters. The flame from this was reaching not only all the way up to the top of this, but shooting out so far that it was actually lifting up the sides of this really quite broad pot. And so, given the power of this, the sort of the unbelievable power of this, completely unexpected, that I observed, not surprisingly, this boiled water very, very quickly. We went from regular cold tap water to a full-on rolling boil in under 4 minutes from the time the stove bloomed. And so the bloom was about a minute, so it was about 5 minutes total if you want to count from the time you light it until the water's boiling. And that's really quite quick for an alcohol stove, particularly one that would potentially seem to have all of these disadvantages to it. But really the chimney effect of the Hexagon wood stove really does work, even with the disadvantages that are created by the way this sits in there. It was just cranking, and so it boiled this water very, very quickly. The only downside to this that I see is it's probably not the most alcohol fuel efficient stove you're going to use if you're going to use it in this configuration. This is a 4-ounce bottle of alcohol, and that's how much is left after I boiled the water. And when I blew out the flame after I got the kettle off, there were only a few drops of alcohol left. It was getting ready to go out right then as I was getting ready to blow it out. And so just sort of rough judging this, if this is a 4-ounce bottle and it's a little bit more than half full now, I didn't quite use 2 ounces, but I used a bit more than 1.5 ounces, somewhere between 1.5 and 2. That's a fair bit of alcohol just to boil 2 cups of water. If you're a thru hiker and you're thinking about using this to go like the Appalachian Trail, I'm going to wave you off on that, because I think you could probably find something that uses alcohol a little more efficiently. This is really a sort of boosting the stove, sort of maybe even beyond its designed output, and really, really cranking. But that means that it's pushing the alcohol out very quickly, and it burns very quickly. The burn time for this without being in here is going to be more like 10 minutes, and so you're cranking through your alcohol quickly when you put it in this thing. But for most of us who are going to use this on a 2-nighter or 3-nighter, don't really care about an incremental ½ ounce of alcohol, yeah, this works fine. And indeed, I'm going to be very curious to see how this works now out in the field, because I think by boosting the stove like this, it's going to sort of help with one of the problems that alcohol stoves sometimes face in the field, which is that they don't work so great in adverse conditions, because this is really sort of boosting the power of the stove to make it work a little bit more like the way a gas pressure cylinder stove would work. So what I'm going to do is I'm leaving this video up, and if it's just spring here, so backpacking season is just beginning. If I have some better and more informed comments after using this in the field a little bit, I will leave a note in the comments section. So definitely check that. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Have a nice afternoon. Thanks.